And we have a person on the other end of the telephone. His name is Tim Allan. And after he stopped being on Tool Time, no, it's a different Tim Allan. Good morning, Tim.
G'day.
I bet you've never heard that in your life.
Yeah, you get it occasionally. You get a lot of people cold calling and unable to withhold their giggles, but it's fine. I'm pretty used to it.
But you're Tim Allan and he's Tim Allan, I think. Is that correct?
That is correct.
See? Detail.
Or Allan with two A's, if you want to be precise, and he was A-L-L-E-N. But initially he was called Tim Dick.
Was he?
He was born Tim Dick, and as a comedian he thought that might be so I thought he should have kept
it reminds me of the wonderful Two Ronnies joke about, they used to do the news at the start, and they'd say, I was at a party the other day, and I ran into a man called Arthur Stinks, and Arthur didn't like his name growing up, so he changed it to Stan Stinks. It's pathetic, but it's worth a laugh, isn't it?
Always gets you, yep.
Tim, we probably should introduce the fact that we've been playing songs about hotels, and there may or may not be a link to you. Tell us a bit about why we've dragged you on to have a chat.
Well, it's a good segue. I started a social media platform called The Local in 2020 after COVID sort of happened. Basically, it was a passion project because I'm a lover of pubs, particularly country pubs. I always have been, even as a little guy, being dragged along to the family hotel in Bathurst with my father after a game of cricket and just loving them, loving what they stood for, loving the buildings, the architecture, and just the environment of pubs I've always been attracted to. All sorts of country pubs during COVID and post-COVID were having a horrible time of things, really struggling to keep their doors open. And a friend of mine came up to me and he said, hey, why don't we, as media professionals in our day-to-day job, why don't we go and start doing these little documentaries about country pubs and how important they are for the community, for the country? And it was sort of like, oh, I'm chips in. Like, this is...
Yeah, there's got to be a beer in it somewhere there.
There's so many positives, it's hard to choose. So we started doing that in 2020. And sort of, it was pretty slow going for a little while there, just with, life. But eventually our videos started to get a little bit of cut.
Well, you've been going 5 years and I've just discovered them. So it's obviously on the incline in terms of following.
Mate, we're just scratching the surface, hopefully.
Absolutely.
It's got 375,000 views in the space of a couple of weeks. And this is 6 months after we published it, so I don't know what happened. It hit the algorithm, and then it was like, right, we're onto something here. Let's go and do a lot more.
I think it's because the two blokes chatting started following you, and we bring with us an audience of at least 5-6 people.
Wacky-do.
That'll be the one. Now, and I know you have credibility because you didn't refer to the town where you started going to pubs as Bathurst, as everyone down here would call it. You call it Bathurst.
Recently just posted a video about the Hotel Kurawatha. There was a fella who was driving his 1929 Fiat on his way through and stopped in, and I had a chat to him, and he said he was from Castlemaine and he was on his way to Bathurst. It's like, I'm not going to correct you. That's what everyone on television says.
I can see why you and Neil get on so well.
We interviewed a bloke called Dave Warner last week, not the one who played cricket, but the one who had the enormous hit Suburban Boy in 1970s. And he was off to Castlemaine, and I said, mate, if you're going into a pub and calling yourself Dave Warner from the suburbs, and I'm here in Castlemaine, you're going to get laughed out of town.
Yeah. No, I have come and guts her a few times and not doing my research properly, and went to a town and mispronounced the town name, and made sure that I try not to do that ever again.
Yeah, well, Billawheeler and Canowindra are the two that always used to get me, because Billawheeler looks like an explosion in a valve factory, and Canowindra is how you might pronounce Canowindra if you didn't know better.
Well, I've lived in Canowindra, strangely enough.
You call that living?
Yeah, great little town.
It is a nice little town, isn't it? Particularly if you like hot air balloons.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I've been in a hot air balloon at the festival there, working for the local rag in Mudgee, the Mudgee Guardian, and as it were, well, I was a little bit worried. I'm a bit scared of heights, and of course we got blown off track and had to make a crash landing about 5 kilometres away from where we were meant to land in a paddock. Luckily, some farmer came out on a ute and
Going another one who didn't know the Westerly comes in on a Thursday afternoon. Have you ever watched the television series Rake?
Only a couple of episodes.
Okay, because I won't be a spoiler, but someone gets blown off course there and ends up in New Zealand in a hot air balloon. So at least that didn't happen. So, I mean, clearly it's something that Rob and I have spoken about quite a bit in terms of the importance of community. And, we've often said, 50 years ago, you'd go to your local church and you would meet someone who you'd spend the rest of your life with. That obviously has diminished in terms of popularity. The pub and the footy club tend to become really, really important in communities.
Oh, not important, just vital. Absolutely vital. They are, particularly in small towns when you've only got one pub, potentially a post office and a general store, or not even that. Sometimes it is the only place to meet people, to discuss, to get together, to check on one another, and to have that social interaction that we all know is so important. There's been so many studies that will tell you if you do not have human interaction on a regular basis, it is so bad for your mental health. If you are not, having a conversation with a friend, a neighbour, anyone, it can be disastrous. And if you don't have that pub where you can go and do that, the community basically just dies.
I watched one of your videos yesterday, Tim, there was a country pub. All they had in the town was the pub and a football oval across the road, and that was it. And you could see that the publicans really took that sense of community as why they wanted to be in where they are.
If it wasn't that pub in that town, the pub was closed for 10 months. So these guys, husband and wife, and kids, decided that enough is enough. His father, he grew up in Kurawatha, and his father is still living in Kurawatha and was elderly, and was sort of like, the town's dying. The town is dying, and so he just said, right, we're going to come out and buy the pub and bring the town back to life, and that's exactly what they've done. And I love those stories. Like, I tear up thinking about, why people should do this, and, the importance of these pubs, and it is just so important, and I love telling those stories. And so very passionate about it, and that's why it is my passion project. That's why I spend so many hours doing it. I just love it, and I love hearing those stories, and I love seeing pubs come back to life. And, on the other side of the coin, it's so sad when you see a country pub unable to keep the doors open as well. It's really tough.
And I think one of the things too, we talk about the footy club. In your neck of the woods, you need at least 13 or 15 people to run out on the ground. In our part of the world, you need 23. If you're in a place like Eromanga, have you been to the Eromanga Hotel?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, I'll tell you about that in a minute. But you don't have a population. Like Muckadilla is someone I've spoken to on the I've Been Everywhere project. There's 12 people live in Muckadilla. Well, you ain't going to get much of a footy club. But because it's on a main road, people stop. People are going through. You don't need to commit to being at the pub for 22 weeks of the year. You can sort of come and go. It is such an important focus, isn't it?
Yeah, there's absolutely no doubt. It's where people meet. It's where people get married. More importantly, one of the themes that in a lot of country pubs, it's where people say goodbye.
Yes.
It's where you have a wake. And that's, you can't put a value on how important that is.
Yeah.
For communities, and to have a place to go back to remember your mates. Some people who have been lost in that town. And that goes when the pub goes, you lose that connection. And that's what I want about a lot in these stories. It is just such a vital connection, and it's a vital part of history for that area as well. And when it's really, really tough to keep operating as a pub, all that goes. And I think quite often a lot of that is forgotten in politics, and why insurances are so ridiculously expensive, beer the year. And I've just seen this morning, actually, I'm quite excited and having a little celebratory coffee this morning, seeing that the Labor government has decided to put a 2-year freeze on tax.
Well, I think the other thing, and you're just starting to break up a little bit if you've slightly moved, Tim, but I know that you and I, when we first chatted about this, there's a movement headed up by an Australian of the Year called Shanna Wan, and Shanna is very strong on the, making sure that people who don't drink are also made welcome. And I think often the storyline, a lot of those pubs is, in the pub, a few India, don't drive home, But there's also a really important aspect about, making sure that it's about the community focus. The fact that drinking is part of it is a secondary component, and that people can go there and eat, for example.
Absolutely. And it's a place, as I was saying before, that kids are welcome now. Pubs aren't like they used to be back in the day, supporting people coming back from the wars and old men and lonely people who just went there for the beer. Pubs now are just so much more important than that. They are the hub of the community. You do not need to go there and just sit at the bar, having schooners and having shots of port like the old.
Shots of port. You've inspired me to head off to a pub and find a nice sweet sherry if I get a chance this afternoon.
Well, they call that town water in Gold. You get a beer with a shot of sherry or a shot of port. That's the town water.
Now, we've got a caller who sent through a text, Rob of Wilson's Promontory, who was often Rob of the other side of the desk. He's commentating from a distance on the text. He wanted me to highlight, and it's actually something to talk about as well, the Patchewallick pub, for example, in the cleverly named town Patchewallick, and also the Sea Lake pub. I know that's another one. These pubs that have closed and the community's going, no, Barley Charlie, we want a pub, and the community are actually now running it. That's a really great sign for the town as well, I would have thought.
I think it looks to me like if you have a strong community, that's probably the way forward.
Yep.
If you want to hold on to your pub, you have to actually do something about it nowadays. You can't just assume that there's going to be a pub in a small regional community. And if you don't want to lose your pub, and if your pub closed down, that's one of the ways to keep it open. So there's been plenty of cases where communities have done that. Sea Lake is definitely one that's been an example of how to do it successfully. It is a stunning pub.
It is, isn't it?
Not that long ago, yeah. And, had over 1,000 comments or 1,000 likes. And it's just the impact that a group of farmers has had. What's the collective noun for a group of farmers?
A herd.
Yeah, a herd of and decided that, we can't let our local pub die. It's too important to the community. Let's all chip in and make sure. And they must have been very clever because they've found a way to do it and keep it open. So I'm not sure that they're making, millions of dollars, but at least they've been able to find a way to keep it open. And the locals could not be happier and the people that come through the town, and anyone that's got a link to the town or needs to go to the pub and just a place to be. I think it's just a wonderful story. And there are more and more of these happening. Grong Grong, which I know is in New South Wales, but not far from the border, have done the same thing as well.
Soon to be featured on the I've Been Everywhere Project podcast, you understand.
There you go.
And please call it by its correct name. It is called the Grongy Pub, as I was corrected when I rang them and said, is that the Grong Grong Pub? No, it's the Grongy Pub.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like something from a cartoon.
Yep.
That grog. I wondered. Pub.
Well, one of my previous work environments, I used to spend a lot of time in regional Australia, and the man behind me in the next studio, Tom, he is an absolute expert in this sort of thing. But I used to find that when I went to visit a town, to do some work in the town, the fuel distributor I was working with would take me to the best restaurant in town, and it was a sense of pride. Come and try our pub, try our restaurant, try our whatever it is. But I think there's an element of that with the community as well. If you go to Sea Lake and you were doing something there, you would be taken along not because it's necessarily the community focal point, but it's also a sense of enormous community pride. And I think a town needs that as well.
There's no doubt. I mean, like if you go to a town or a community where there's nothing, what are you going to show people?
Yeah.
If you're bringing people in for a celebration, where do you go?
Yeah, and so they put that little bit of extra effort into keeping it clean, keeping it well painted, keeping it. Yeah, it's just that sort of gives a focus to a community, which everything needs.
Yeah, absolutely. 1,000%. You need to have pride in where you live. You need to have something to do, and you need a place to meet, and that's very often the pub. And what I think people underestimate is the importance of it, and particularly people who are living in regional areas that just assume the pub's going to be there, that don't support it, and then crack the absolute you-know-whats when the pub can't afford to be open 7 days a week, or can't afford to have
absolutely
food 7 days a week for lunch and dinner. It's just not possible. Get behind your local pub if you want it to be there.
And when he says get behind your local pub, he doesn't mean get behind, as in the car park. He means get behind.
Beer garden.
Yeah.
Beer garden.
How many videos have you done so far, Tim, and what have you got planned for the upcoming ones?
Good question. We've, I don't know. I'm saying the long-form YouTube videos, we've done about 10. And I've started doing a lot more short form. I do work, I'm very, very fortunate to work in a job where I go around making quite high-quality videos all over the country. So I now just take my phone and do a quick 1-minute video. I did one a great place in Longford, Tasmania. I was doing a story down there and just thought I'd pop into the pub and do a quick video there. So the short-form videos are happening pretty frequently, one a week. On average, the long form 10, but now we're sort of moving into a space where we'd like to do something a little bit different. We want to do a documentary on what's actually happening to country pubs in Australia, and we're working on that at the moment, so that's taking a little bit more.
Well, before we let you go, and we'll promote, obviously, the Facebook and Instagram, but you know what the question's going to be, don't you? And the answer can't be, it's like asking me which my favourite kid is. What's your favourite pub?
It's so hard. So hard. The most recently, probably the Gold and India, which is a tiny little village south of Mudgee in New South Wales, and two young publicans took it over a couple of years ago and have turned the entire community around, and I've never seen anything like it. A community rally around a pub, and these young publicans that have bought this town, it's quite unique, and it was really uplifting, and you could feel it. You could feel it walking through the door, that the locals weren't the people that would turn around and look at you like, who are these blow-ins? They were like turning around going, yes, people have come into our pub, isn't this great? Someone else to talk to. And it was just beautiful, But there are pubs like that in every state, in every region, all over the place.
The passion of the publicans is something to behold. The way that they embrace everything. What was the lady where she talked the husband into buying the pub? That's a great story.
Called Tarana. They no longer have that pub, but I think they're still there. They're still there in the background. But they were beautiful. They were a couple of actually lawyers from Sydney that decided to retire and move to the country for the tree change.
And he thought he could be able to put his feet up. Little did he know. Oh, I should tell you about the Eromanga. If I'm talking about unique pubs, the Eromanga Hotel is far and away the most unique pub I've been to. Most unique? You know what I mean? It's in a town called Eromanga, reputedly the town the furthest away from the coast anywhere in Australia. It's in the southwest of Queensland, out past Quilpie. So you're out a long way. And there's a pub there that if everyone stood shoulder to shoulder at the bar, you could probably fit a good 10 people in. When I was out there, and this is 20 years ago, I went there, on the menu, one of the menu options was McCain's ham and pineapple pizza that you could buy at the Quilpie supermarket down the road for $4 or whatever. They were charging $15 for it. And there were these two blokes.
But they cook it.
Yeah, well, that's right. That microwave expensive, you know. And there was two blokes sitting at the end of the bar, and we got chatting to them. And I said, "Yeah, what's your story?" And they said, "Oh, we're opal miners. We come into town every week for a feed and a drink, and then we go back. I don't know where on earth these guys are opal mining if they're coming into town. The population's about 100. There's a tiny little diesel refinery out there. But here's the sting in the tail. The proprietor's name is John Walker."
Johnny Walker.
And funnily enough, is known as Johnny in town. It's a ripper. If you get the chance to get out, it's a long, long way. If you go from Brisbane to Toowoomba, you then go out to Roma, you're now 3 hours out of Brisbane. Then you get to Charleville, you're about 6.5. Then you get out to Quilpie, which is another 2. Then another 1.5 hours here in Eromanga. So it's a long way from nowhere.
Yeah, I know it actually. I know Quilpie and Adavale, where we've got a relative of mine actually has a property out there.
Oh, nice.
Farmer out in that way. So.
Well, you've got to get to the Eromanga, and if you do, I hope Johnny's still with us. Johnny looked like he mightn't still be with us 20 years later. He may have, I think we'll use the expression, had a hard life. That's probably a good way of putting it. Hey, Tim, we better get going, but tell the good folks where they can find you on the internets.
Lake Bolac, if you can still hear me.
We can still hear you.
Like and I thought, let's get one that's not too far away from you.
Yep.
Like wonderful community pub, beautiful old bluestone,
Nice.
historic hotel, and why I love these guys is they're always posting about the community.
Yeah, we like that.
Doing things for the firefighters. I just love. Like I look at a lot of pub posts on a daily basis, and Lake Bolac for some reason always stand out to me as a pub that really, really cares about their community. So big shout out to Lake Bolac. If you're in the area, go out and check them out.
Yeah, only about an hour and a half from here. Get down and see them and tell them that Tim sent you. Now, how can we find you on the internets and on the Facebooks and stuff?
Okay, so on Instagram we are down at The Local. On Facebook, which is our main platform, it should just come up under The Local. But if you can't find that, you should maybe type in The Local Aussie Pub. It'll probably come up. And on YouTube, you should be able to find us under The Local Aussie Pub. Anything like that will come up.
We'll find it and we'll put it on our socials as well, because I went looking for you yesterday at mild panic. I couldn't find Tim's phone number. And so I'm going through all of your socials. And at last count, there was 9 billion things called The Local something. So we'll find the link and we'll stick it on there. Either that or go to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show. And Tim very kindly liked our post, so you'll be able to trace him that way as well.
Mate, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Big go the Swans, just for all of the Geelong Cats fan. And
Excellent. Guess who I broke for, mate?
I know, you're a Brisbane supporter.
So, and a big shout out to all the Sydney Swans supporters. Good morning to you all. Thanks, Tim, and let's keep in touch. I reckon this is a grouse project you're doing, and we just want to be part of it. So, good work to you.
Appreciate it, Neil. Thanks for having me on. Cheers, friend.